Hey, this is Cortland Sutton.
Hey, this is Tim Patrick.
And you're listening to The Snap
with Sidney Jones
on Broncos
Podcast Network. Yeah.
What's up, Broncos country? Welcome back to the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube for the latest episode of The Snap. I'm your host, Sidney Jones, and it's week 16 of the regular season, and the Denver Broncos are set to face the Los Angeles Rams on Christmas Day at SoFi Stadium. So joining me here on this week's episode of The Snap is this weekend sideline reporter, CBS Sports' Tracy Wolfson. Tracy, what a pleasure to have you on The Snap today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Sydney. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. How you doing? Gearing up for the weekend, not only for the game, but for Christmas too?
I am looking forward to it. It's brutal weather here. Can't wait to get to LA, have some sun, do this game, and going to head to Florida, meet my family for a few days after. So it'll be a little R&R before getting back and doing another game next week.
Oh, good. Yeah, I know I've talked to a ton of players this week and what it's just meant to play on Christmas Day, whether their families, are coming out for the game or staying here. So I'm glad to hear you're going to be able to spend some time with your family too, right afterwards.
Yeah, and it's really nice. I mean, we do the Thanksgiving game and, all eyes are on those games, no matter what the records are. It's family holiday. Everyone's together. They're cooking. This one, of course, they're opening presents and just spending time together. And so it is an honor to be able to do this game, to be on Christmas Day. I look forward to it. And while the records might not be what we wanted them to be, it's still going to be just a tremendous opportunity to do this game for CBS.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Tracy, I know in preparation for this game, you've had production meetings with both teams. I know you talked to Russell Wilson and Coach Hackett earlier in the week. What did you talk to them about, and what did they have to say about this matchup?
Yeah, well, this is the first time we've had a chance to see the Broncos. And, in reality, when we're covering so many other games and other teams, we don't even get a chance to really see these teams, week in and week out. So maybe we do, some film work leading up to it a little bit, but just really talking, and it's not even so much X's and O's right now about this game going forward. Certainly both teams want to win, but really talking about what the whole year has been like. And certainly for Nathaniel Hackett in his first season. And he's one of my favorites, had a chance to be around him in Jacksonville, had a chance to be around him in Green Bay, and really happy that he got the opportunity. And certainly it's a struggle early on. And he talked about his relationship with his father, Paul, who we know has, the utmost credentials, and leaning on him for some stuff, and how difficult it has been, but how he's figured it out as the season has gone on. And then on the flip side of it, Russell Wilson as well. I mean, figuring it out, a new team, a new environment, managing all of these injuries, certainly. And, just trying to figure out where he fits in, getting on the same page. And with all these injuries, it's really difficult to do that. And so I think we just really talked overall, about the season in general.
Well, it'll be nice to see Russell Wilson back on the field this weekend. I know prior to suffering a concussion back in week 14, this offense honestly looked the best it looked all season. I know Russell, he threw for 3 touchdowns, was on his way to getting a 4th before getting injured. So Tracy, how do you really hope to see maybe this offense just kind of build off of that performance heading into this weekend?
I think they feel really good about that performance, and certainly what Ripien did last week as well. I think they feel like they're getting into this groove. Efficiency is the word that comes out, and the word that they utilized as well. And balance. Certainly we've been able to see they've been able to run the football and then opens it up for the passing game. And when you can have that balance, they feel like they can be efficient. They can move the football and have success on offense. And I think that's what you're going to try and see. You're going to see the Broncos try and do this week. Now, certainly you're facing a Rams team. Their defense is good, just like the Broncos defense. They're really good against the run as well, good in the red zone. And so I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of game this is. I think we're going to see a low-scoring game between these two teams, but I do feel like they have something. They feel like they've got something, and they can feed off of it. And, certainly, the Broncos still have some weapons out there. They're going to hopefully get Cortland Sutton back. Maybe Chase Edmonds will be able to be in the rotation a little bit. I think that's really good for Russell Wilson in this offense, certainly.
Yep, I agree. And I hope to see them continue that this weekend. Tracy, looking at the Rams, quarterback Baker Mayfield, he's had kind of a wild 2 weeks. Rams acquired him, and 2 days later, he played that crazy game versus the Raiders in which they won, but unfortunately fell this past weekend or Monday night to the Packers. So how do you think maybe he'll fare going up against this Broncos defense, like you mentioned, that's been just so dominant this season?
Yeah, I mean, crazy 2 weeks, but I think crazy year for Baker
Yeah,
Mayfield,
good point.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
just a whirlwind. And I'm interested in talking to him a little later about, what that's been like for him. And I'm sure he's humbled a little bit and comes in and now all of a sudden has to, get used to a new team and a new play caller and an offensive line. And oh, by the way, an offensive line that has 14 different combinations throughout this season
Crazy.
and losing another center. And so it's a struggle, and you understand why it's a struggle. I mean, just like the Broncos, who lead the team, I guess, lead the league in IR players, right? The Rams too have had a lot of injuries. When you look at that wide receiver position, you have no one to throw the ball to. So I think they're just trying another week that Baker Mayfield has had a chance to kind of get comfortable, get the play calling down, get on the same page. Hopefully he takes another step. But as you mentioned, going to be difficult against a Denver defense that's playing really well.
Yeah, for sure. And, one guy on that defense, cornerback Pat Surtain, he was, of course, named a Pro Bowl starter this week, his first Pro Bowl. Very happy for him. But Tracy, what have you just seen from him this season that, just makes him so special?
Yeah, and not only what he's done on the field, but off the field. And, it's no surprise he's, a former all-star. His dad is a Pro Bowler himself. And yeah, I mean, so he's got it in his genes, and it's the personality and it's the drive. In just year 2 that he's been able to make the Pro Bowl. And we've all, heard him this week where how excited he is, and he's going to try and catch up to his dad's record and all of that. But everyone we talked to and every coach we spoke to is just the type of person he is, the leader he is, what he brings to this defense, the energy he brings, and just you can understand why. You see it on the field, you see it off the field. And I think we all can be so happy that he's gotten this opportunity. And what's great about it is he was selected by the coaches and his peers. And I think that means even more. And certainly Hackett talked about being, the only player that was selected by coaches and peers as a starter for the team. And when wins happen, you get more players, in the Pro Bowl. But for him to have that opportunity in year 2, so glad he was recognized, and everyone you talk to says the same exact thing.
Yeah, for sure. He's a very, very humble person. So it's great to see him get some of these accolades that he definitely deserves. Tracy, we've talked about, just how both teams have been hit just so severely by the injury bug this season. When I look at the Rams again, who are maybe some of the younger guys that have really stepped up for them that the Broncos should be on the lookout for this weekend?
I mean, honestly, I don't even know who's stepping in. I just got off the phone with Raheem Morris, and you hear with Aaron Donald not being out there again and most likely out for the rest of the season, and just a rotation of really young guys. I think, Greg Gaines, what he's been able to do, I think he's really stepped up, certainly not necessarily a really young guy, but he's really been able to do a good job stepping in. Mike Hoyt, they really love, just moving him to that outside linebacker position. He's been able to get to the quarterback. I mean, I think you're just seeing guys step up, and it's going to be, it is what it is. It's just a rotation of players. Let's see who they throw out there. Let's see who can step up. And that's what these next 3 games are about. Certainly they want to win these games, but they want to see who are the young guys that can step up, that we can keep on, that will be able to take a place next year. And it's a lot of decision making, personnel moves, personnel making. I think we're going to see a lot of rotation because you're going to try and get guys in and out so that they can see what they have there. So I think, when you talk about a Rams team and these young guys that you're going to see, it's just going to be a lot of different guys playing a lot of different positions. And that's what we talked about with Raheem Morris on the defensive side of the ball specifically, is he's just got to get some young guys in there. You're going to see it on the Rams offensive line. It's been that way all season long. So.
Yeah, Tracy, going off of that, the Broncos are looking to get back-to-back wins this weekend. With a win, it would be just their second time to do that this season. So kind of what you talked about earlier, Tracy, how important is it for this Broncos team just to finish the season strong here and head into the offseason on a good note?
Well, that's what and exactly what the Rams want to do. And people are saying, oh, you look at these records and you look at the matchup and what are they playing for? Well, they're playing for their careers, right? They're
Right.
playing for next year. They're playing to show who they are and what they can do and why they should be on the team next year. They're playing for a spot. And yet, if you can finish strong, gain some momentum, and I think specifically for the Broncos, it was a transition year, certainly, and the injuries killed it. And so everyone has injuries. We get it. You don't want to blame it on the injuries, but significant amount of injuries that just doesn't let you put something all together. And so I think now they feel like they're in a spot where maybe, it is taking place. Kubiak taking over the play calling, Nathaniel Hackett understanding what it takes to be a head coach, the sharing of ideas, the sharing of a game plan, certainly Russell Wilson. And he's had some injuries as well. So, coming back and just having, some consistency. And as we talked about earlier, the efficiency down the stretch of the season, it does wonders for a team going into the offseason.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Well, Tracy, really appreciate your insight on this matchup. Before you go, just want to switch gears a little bit and dive into your career. As many of my listeners know here on the Snap, one of my main goals is to highlight, just some of the most prominent and dominant women around the league. And you certainly fit in that category. So Tracy, I know you've had just some incredible stops along the way in your career. So where'd you get your start? And can you kind of walk me through the journey that you took to get to where you are today?
Sure. I'll try and narrow it down a little bit because it was a long journey, but I graduated from the University of Michigan. Always knew I wanted to be a sideline reporter since I was about 7, 8 years old. It's what I wanted to do, but I had no tape, had nothing nothing I did at the University of Michigan on the air. So I did a lot of stuff behind the scenes. I got a job as a researcher for CBS. I worked there for a year. Then I was an agent for a year. I worked as a sports producer for a year, and I made a fake tape and I sent it all over the country. None of it had ever aired. I was never on the air. And I got one job in Trenton, New Jersey. And as you know, you got to go to these small markets to try and climb the ladder. Luckily, my market was in Trenton, which was only about a little over an hour from my house. So made the commute every day to Trenton, New Jersey. And for a year and a half, I covered everything from college to high school to minor league sports, really no professional sports, but I did a 5-minute sportscast basically by myself. I got my feet wet. I got a lot of experience and I made myself a tape, most importantly. And I have to be honest, luck plays a really big part in this business. And it was right at the time where, all these networks were really looking for more females in the business. And I was there in the New York area. MSG had reached out and ESPN had reached out and I got some opportunities. And when I think back now to think that I went to MSG and to ESPN was my first live sideline gig ever, right? I mean, that doesn't happen now.
That doesn't happen anymore. Yeah.
And I will tell you, it was a little rocky there in the beginning. But I spent about 6 months there. And basically they were like, yeah, we don't know if we'll bring you back in the fall for college football, but we'll see. And CBS had a number 2 reporter position open at the time. And I applied for it. They remembered me as a researcher. It came back down to 2 of us and they hired me and took a chance on me. And I've been there now So I've been there on the air for 18 years, but I think I just celebrated my 20th anniversary because I was there 2 years as a researcher.
Oh, wow. Well,
crazy to think.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on your anniversary then.
Thank you. Thanks.
That's wonderful. Tracy, when you look back, you mentioned when you first started at ESPN, it was a little bit of a rocky road. When you kind of look back at your career, what have been some, of the biggest challenges you kind of faced along the way?
Yeah, I mean, I had one real big challenge where I was covering tennis for CBS Sports. I grew up a tennis player at the U.S. Open, and it was my dream to be at the U.S. Open on center court, Arthur Ashe Court. And to make the story short, it was a match between Leighton Hewitt and Marty Fish or Taylor Dent, actually. And Taylor Dent took him to 5 sets. He shouldn't have taken him to 5 sets. And I asked a question to start the interview at the end after Leighton Hewitt won in 5 sets, and the whole entire stadium booed me. I got booed off center court at Arthur Ashe Stadium. Now, they wanted the question of, congratulations, you came back from down 2 sets to love to win in 5. How'd you do it? I was trying to be all serious and come up with these great questions. And I remember I walked in, I like head down, I was mortified.
Right.
And my producer at the time said, it wasn't a bad question, just bad timing, just understand when and where to ask it. And just remember, you're not Barbara Walters. And he basically wanted to say, sometimes just go with that easy question,
Right.
That was hard though. That was the low point of my career. It was year 1, 2 at CBS.
Mhm.
And I remember saying, I don't know if I can pick myself up off the floor and get back out there. Had a lot of other, supportive people around me who was like, come on, you got this. And I did, of course, I went back out there. And so that was a low point in my career. I was a researcher. I went in to get promoted, and my boss at the time said, I know you know sports, but not like the guys do. And that was like, oh my God, that was my first moment of, okay, well, I'm a woman and I'm going to have to prove myself, extra. And that was a big wake up call. And then honestly, I think number 3 is juggling being a mother and a wife and traveling every single week from September until May and missing a lot of holidays and birthdays and sporting events and plays and all of that goes into it. And, it's hard for young reporters to understand that side because they're not there in their lives yet. But it is something to know that when you're going into the business, you need to have a supportive partner that's going to understand the give and take, and then that you are going to miss out on a lot of those, opportunities and those, those special days and the time with your kids. But I always said I would continue to do it until it didn't work for my family, and it's worked for my family. So, it's been great. They understand, they get it. I have an extremely supportive husband, and now they're older, so they don't even care anymore.
Well, that's so wonderful to hear. Tracy, I have just one more question for you. I like to end these episodes just giving advice to the younger generation. So what's one piece of advice you'd give someone looking to get into the industry, no matter what area of it they really want to work in?
Yeah, be a good teammate. I mean, I think it's really true that if you could get along with others, if you, really just do what everyone asks you to do to your utmost potential, if you're great to work with, if you're pleasant to be around, if you're not a diva, like there's so many of those lingos, those little like sayings I always, think to myself that, you just be a good partner in this business. And we see it in football, right? We see it in every sport. Being a good teammate goes a really long way, and it provides longevity. And I truly believe if people want to work alongside you, you're going to have longevity in any business, and they're going to go to bat for you every day. And I truly believe it's one of the reasons I'm still here today. And that's the one piece of advice. I mean, I could give so much advice, but it's like a simple one. Just be a good person, be a good teammate.
Good person. I love that.
Yeah.
Sounds easy enough, right?
Exactly.
Well, Tracy, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thanks, Sydney. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Well, that'll do it for this week's episode of The Snap Broncos Country. Thanks so much for tuning in. And thank you again to Tracy Wolfson for joining me today. Make sure to follow the Broncos Podcast Network on Twitter and on YouTube to stay up to date on The Snap's latest episodes. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and happy holidays. I will see you all next time.